don't really control access to information, or I should say, we don't have control over the access we have to information. We really don't. And we're just being fed what people think we need to see and hear. And I think that people, as humans, we need to be more discerning about
Yeah.
what is the information that I'm receiving and why. Like when you scroll through your Instagram feed.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Everyone, welcome to part 2 of my interview with Danielle Gates from 90 Day Fiance. We are going to pick this up right where we left off, and we're going to talk about what life is like as a reality TV star from 90 Day Fiance, and I'll probably sprinkle in some Love is Blind, and what that's like when you have the world of the internet, the bloggers, Reddit, the commentary, people judging you, and really online bullying. So welcome back, and let's get started. So you were saying that once you were on the show or applying to the show the first time, that you were doing your due diligence to find out about who the bloggers were, who's friendly, who's safe, who's not, all the Reddit threads. So yeah, what made you think to do that?
So the season 1 cast of Love in Paradise, I had a conversation with 2 of the girls who had done it. They were both just like, don't go to Reddit. Whatever you do, don't go to Reddit.
Yes.
And then one of the producers, I said, once this airs, what is some feedback here? She said, 90 Day the Melanated Way. Linda Atwi, like she's legit. She's an actual journalist and she is objective and she's telling you want to be on their good side. But otherwise the hate, please ignore it. Do not get in the middle of it. There will be other people who will defend you. It's not up to you to defend yourself. And I didn't
Such
think
good advice.
anything of that at the time, right? I just felt like that was great advice. But once I went through it, because, okay, so I'm going through this experience with the internet and marketing and the bloggers and the hashtags and all this shit through the show, and I'm often dealing with it in my business. I have a marketing team, right? Who knows about marketing? And so I'm in my business, and we're talking about how we're going to make sure that my brand stays intact through this process. All we talk about is SEO. Rich Affair Marketing, SEO, search engine optimization, right? So that means, for people who don't know, that when I go to search for something at Google, I go search for a yoga teacher. The first yoga teacher that comes up for me is not necessarily the best yoga teacher or the most, yoga teacher. It is the person who has the best SEO, meaning every word that is attached
or is
to
paying to be there. They can pay on that keyword too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're all of these words that this teacher has decided to, like, for me, it's yoga, it's Ayurveda, it's holistic healing, it's acupuncture. It's like, these are all the words that my team has decided that shape my brand. So every single time we create a piece of content, a social media post, a YouTube video, a TikTok video, a blog post, a landing page, every single thing that we create attached to my brand uses these same keywords, so that when people are searching for yoga or Ayurveda, I am at the top of the list because I have content over 6 years talking about these things. And it's legitimate. I'm not making it up, right? This is literally who I am and what I do. And so I'm using the system the way that the system is built. Now, if you have AI generated content that does those things, Google actually suppresses it, which is new and kind of cool.
Oh, I didn't know they were doing that.
Yeah. So it used to be like you could create the same newsletter, blog post, Instagram caption, YouTube caption, like you could create the same thing for all of it. Now that actually makes it worse for you. So now you actually have to create original content. And if it's AI generated, that's like pushed away. So there's all these like nuances now. What I realized these things always happen to me, and then I have these like parallel experiences, like with my family and my husband, with my marketing team, and what's happening with the show. Always happens to me this way, so that I learn. With the show, I was seeing the same thing. The narrative that was being created for particular characters were always attached to the same words. So for me, you saw the phrase "cesspoolness." You saw Danielle sex tours all the time.
Oh my
It was in all
God.
the comments. It was in all the Reddit threads. It was on all the blog posts. You saw colonizer. You saw racist. You saw like there was this language that was broke that I was I can't remember like what all the things were. And what I noticed in the Reddit comments was like people would leave a comment that was just a word or a couple of words, and I'm
Yes.
like, oh shit, that's someone who's intentionally trying to create a narrative. You're not even pretending to be doing this genuinely. You are literally a producer or, you know, like it's
Yep.
or someone who is trying to create this narrative because it's going to lead to the next episode. And I'm like,
And you told me about this
what?
a year ago when we talked. And I remember thinking to myself, holy shit. And I started looking into it now that this had like entered into my world. And I 100% agree with you that there are the storylines that they want to push. They have people on Reddit, whether it's producers, whether it's staff, whether it's bots, whether it's whatever. They have people that are pushing these narratives. They have social media commentators pushing these narratives, and they're all getting paid or coming from production to push these narratives so that it grows the storyline that they're
Yeah.
trying to tell. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you
No,
really
it's
opened my eyes
fine.
to that.
Yeah, it was really, you know, and I feel like I wouldn't even have a problem with that if you didn't pretend like it wasn't happening. Because
Yes.
I get business.
And marketing.
I operate in this capitalist system, make your money, right? As long as I'm making it too, or as long as you're giving me a heads up for my PR team to spin it however I have to spin it. Like, let's be a team. You want to create great television. I want to make a lot of money and live in a overwater bungalow in the Maldives. Like, let's make us both happy and make great television. You know, like let us have that conversation. But we can't pretend that these social media quotes or this language that people are using is around a very specific narrative. And there were 2 times where someone said something in Reddit. There was one time where someone said something very specific about my son that I had said to a producer. I was talking about an experience, and this like exact thing about my son showed up on Reddit, and I was like I
What?
trusted, and not my producer who I love, it was a different person, but like I trusted these people, this crew, these producers. Like I had known them for over a year. Like I had worked with them on a lot of different things. So I was like, man, like I really trusted you, but at the end of the day, you're doing your job. You know, I have a job to do and you have a job to do and you're doing your job, and I wish your job was different. You know, like I wish there were beater maids. You know, I wish there weren't people who had to do these jobs that are shitty, but like, yeah, exactly. So, you know, but that knowing that made it so much easier to navigate it, because then I could really say, none of this is real.
It's
like,
not.
I'm here sitting here upset about 300 Reddit comments. 45 million people watch this show around the world. It's the same 8 people in Reddit with these 300 comments. And out of those 8 people, 4 of them are bloggers. Because I see the same comment here that you just said in your podcast. Because people don't know how fucking crazy I am. I listen and watch all the things. So like, it's all just one game that's run by the same 5 people. You know, the same 5 people are creating, they have 14 different blog pages, they have 3 Reddit threads, they're this mob, they're this, and it's like, you know, this whole world that we think is giant is actually this. And like, once you realize that the online hate and the bullying and the cyber stalking, all of that, it doesn't mean anything anymore. Then you start to play with it. Now in TikTok, when they come into the comments, I engage with them because that just boosts me in the algorithm. It gets more people in the room. You know, like I've separated the ownership of it. I'm no longer triggered by the statements because I know why they're there. And so it helps me use it to my advantage. So now you don't see my face on any of these blogs. I was never on 90 Day Fiance. No one knows. You know,
that's so
you
crazy.
don't see it anywhere. And so like, it's because I pointed this out, because I said, like, I know what you are, I know who you are, and I'm not fucking signing up for this. Let's play this game. I'll win. You know, and like, you know,
I am like, I've been saying this is like CIA level, just the layers of it. It's like, because when I was younger, I became obsessed with the JFK assassination and reading a whole bunch of books. I wrote reports on it for school all the way into college. And, you know, I can do my theories another day, but the level here So you think of like a show and you think of how they're marketing a show, commercials, ads, PR, basic stuff, right?
Right.
Then there's like this whole, that's like the iceberg thing, right? Like that's what's
Mhm.
above water. And then there's everything that's underneath it. And that's the narrative control, the Reddit threads, the blogging community, the journalists. And then there's an article broken by People or TMZ or something. And then everybody else writes articles about that article. And then
Yeah.
everybody who's lower tier blogger writes articles about the articles about the article. And it's just this giant, like, growing commentary or blogging or whatever. And then you add in the people that are blogging or commentating about the people that are blogging or commentating and giving your take on the person's take on the original piece of content. And you're sitting there and it's like, this is fucking nuts. And then to top the cherry on top, I have discovered, as I've shared with you, there are social media accounts that are pretending to be commentators or moonlighting as an entertainment reporter, and they're getting fed stories from production and they're on their payroll. And then they're growing or spreading these stories that are pushing the narratives. You go to the Love is Blind Netflix social media account, they're doing the same thing with their memes that are like, they're like poking lightheartedly at someone whose life just got ruined because they got destroyed on the reunion or destroyed in an episode or whatever that is. And it's just this like, it's this algorithm content pushing low level content. The content just keeps finding new ways to get lower and lower. But what it's doing is it's flooding the internet and the world with, like you said, the keywords and the narratives and the stories that they want to push. They wanted to push that you were, what was the first one you said?
The sex
Sexual.
tourist. The sex tourist. That's a big one. That's a big 90-day one. The sex
That's
tourist.
crazy. Like, and then to
people don't
see
know
that
what that
everywhere.
means.
No,
Nobody knows what that means. That means that that's someone who goes on vacation to have sex.
to have sex.
What
Yeah.
a sex tourist actually is typically an old man who goes to another country and takes advantage of young girls, takes advantage of the lack of prostitution laws. Like, that is what that really is. So I'm a teacher. I'm a mother. I've never married, someone overseas before. This isn't a story that I have. This isn't something I do. So, like, how fucking dare you? But it's like, I'm trying to have this conversation with people who have the education of like a fire ant, like they really don't
Well, no
even
critical thinking
understand.
skills.
Yeah, there's no critical thinking. One, it was actually, what's his name? Honda? Kirk
Dr.
Honda?
Kirk Honda, yeah.
So Dr. Kirk Honda, he creates a video that says, Danielle and Johan, privileged colonizer. That's the title, right? So that's the phrase that's attached to my name. He does not know me. I don't know that he's watched the whole show, but the commentary that he offered, and this was the only thing that I watched, someone sent it to me, they're like, you gotta see this guy. He basically, the whole episode is him talking about himself. And then it's like a clip of me telling Johan, I said, please be careful. I don't want to get into an accident. And he says that I'm controlling and I'm treating him like a child and all these terrible things about me. And we literally had gotten into a car accident the day before, and it was a day off, and production had to like save us and the car and get us a new car. It was like a big ordeal. So it was a legitimate concern to have.
Yeah.
But like, he doesn't
That's
know
the lack
that.
of context. Yeah.
Yeah. So he like paints this picture of me, and then at the end, there's actually nothing he ever says that calls me a colonizer, a privileged colonizer. Like there's no even context for the title. So the title is just for the keywords because that's what people are saying about me, but the actual piece wasn't about that. And here's a guy who's like a therapist. Right? He's supposed to be speaking about this. I know. You've done a show with him. That's why I bring him up, because it's like there's other bloggers that are by therapists that are saying like terrible things about you and really making their lives hard. And people believe them because they're therapists. That gives them agency.
It's very
that
dangerous.
gives them power.
It's authority.
It's very different if you're just like, there's this other guy who's like this terrible 90-day blogger. He doesn't have an actual job. He doesn't have skills. Like this bully doesn't talk shit about people all day. Nobody's really taking him seriously.
That's
but,
that
like,
low level content.
Yeah, you get out there and you've got degrees and you've got clientele and people believe you. That gives you some authority.
And he does have authority. He does. Like I watched a lot of his videos about Danielle and I, and
Man.
I felt like and I told him this, like one of the reasons that I felt like I watched his was because I felt like he was coming from a genuine place, and that he really was like sharing what he thinks we would need in that situation to build a better relationship. But so I haven't seen a lot of his stuff. I've just seen that. But that the reason I found him initially was because I was watching, late at night, going through a divorce and just really depressed, looking for some validation that this is the right thing, I guess. I don't even know. And it would just be people talking so much shit. And it's just like, you don't fucking know what you're talking about. It'd be therapists, it'd be commentators. It's like, you're not, you have no authority whatsoever. And then, or you do have authority and you're misusing it. And it's such a gross, and that's the thing. It's like the commentators about the reality show, which the reality show is fake. And then the commentators are commenting on that. And then there's people that are commenting on, Dr. Kirk and his content and analyzing his content of analysis of what he's seeing on TV, which isn't even real. It's like,
the only reason I even saw his thing was because so many people put in a Reddit thread, oh, you have to see Dr. Kirk's take on Daniel. He really explains her well. And I'm like, what the fuck is Dr. Kirk? And so I asked my team, I'm like, can you find this Dr. Kirk, whatever the hell he's saying? They're like, this is it. It's just like, I think I would respect everybody more if they ask for my opinion.
Go to the source. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me what happened here. Like, my African spirituality in Love in Paradise was quite the conversation. They were like, how did this white bitch get into the Orishas? Like, how did this happen? And so 90 Day, the Melanated White called me and asked me. She said, I want to have you on the show and talk about this. How did you get here? That's reasonable. That makes sense to me.
Totally.
No problem. And they approved it. The show approved it. And they don't really approve us doing a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that there's something to be said for ask me. Show that if you don't get to speak about me unless you ask me.
Yeah. So I actually started saying this last fall. If you don't speak about me unless you want to speak to me. And a lot of people prefer to speak about you and not come to the source. And the funny thing, and this is what really ticked me off, is I had lost my job after getting smeared and horrible headlines, to go what we talked about in last week's episode. I had the whole thing where I'd go in job interviews and it would just go sideways as soon as someone figured that out, right? And they didn't take me seriously anymore and all that stuff. And I had, in a passive aggressive, half joking but real way, in an interview at the end of a 30-40 minute interview about unionization and why reality stars should be treated as workers and all of this stuff, I casually made a comment about, I'm like out of money. I went through all my savings. I did everything right. I had savings. I ended up cashing out my 401k, all to just keep paying my mortgage while I was having trouble finding a job and people weren't taking me seriously. Now, I hadn't had trouble finding a job in a long time. Like I've got a good resume. I'm very talented. I know what I'm doing when it comes to marketing. So this was like such an uncharted territory for me. And so I casually said, I'm like, yeah, like they're making millions of dollars. A new season's coming out and I'm going to lose my home if I can't find another job. And the headlines. So that was the headline, because that's clickbait. Yeah, that's clickbait. But like it was a tongue-in-cheek comment that had truth to it, right? And so that went crazy. And then all the articles about the article went in there. And if you read that article, it's literally like one sentence at the end, and then they made that the headline. But then all these people started commenting on it and saying he blames the show. And then I literally never blame the show. I said, it's the whole experience has created this environment that I have to learn how to operate in now. That was my whole commentary. And Chris Harrison, God bless him, I know he's got some baggage that he deals with, but his team actually reached out and was like, this didn't seem, he told me on his podcast, he asked me to come on and talk about this. And he said, he's like, this didn't seem like the guy that I saw in Love is Blind. It seemed like very inflammatory. So I wanted to get the real story from you. And so that is come and talk to me. Don't talk about me. And then people from my own season, and I'm not going to say their names because it's not worth it, they would talk and comment on it as if they had any idea what my situation was, when any of them could have texted me. And the funny thing is, who did text me out of everyone on the show? Shake. And you know what he did? And I'm giving him kudos, because he and I never got along ever. And he said, hey man, I saw what you're going through. You're a smart guy, and I know you're going to get your feet up, and I'm sending you support. Everyone else
Wow.
just talked about me. And it's
Yeah.
like, you have my phone number. You could say, hey, what's going on? Do you want to talk about it? And I'm not even like trying to use it to get on bigger podcasts or anything. Same with Nick Vile when he called me a motherfucker for starting UCAN, and once again wants to talk about me and to talk about the organization, but won't talk to me. And dude, like, we've exchanged DMs. You could DM me directly. I'll even have, I've said I'll have an off the record conversation with you just so you can understand where I'm coming from, because you obviously don't, and you don't care to hear it from me. And so that's a huge issue in this commentary, and then commentary on commentary, is that it's a game of telephone essentially, right? And then you have people misreporting things that you say, and it's like, what are you going to do? Sue some? Well, you've got to figure it out with your trademark. Sue some idiot podcaster for defamation? Like, is that worth my time? No. And so to me, it's like, if you have, like, it's funny too, because, people who have my phone number, who know me, who were on a show with me, or have access to me because, you're from the universe, right? Anyone who DMs me from reality TV universe, like, you're going to get a response, right? So to have those people, but then have these tiny little podcasts who I know benefit from having, people like us on, but they're brave enough to DM and say, hey, can you come on my show? Would you like to talk about this? Yeah, sure. Let me do that. But the people that have the platform would rather just gossip and talk about you instead of talk to you. And it's disgusting. And it's unethical. It's actually very bad journalism, as you would know.
For sure. My grandmother's knocking on the door. Give me a second. So, okay. That was just
so you handled that really well. Yeah, that was a real trauma dump for me. But that it is frustrating when people won't talk to you, but they want to talk about.
Let me just. Okay. So, where were we? Okay, so I think what you just said there is really interesting. These little podcasters will call you and they'll ask you for, your commentary, or they'll ask you to come on this little show. At the end of the day, what is important is that what you have to say gets out there. So and this is really for anyone who's going to do these shows, as long as your voice is saying a thing, again, that's SEO. So don't be afraid to talk to these little people who don't seem like they have a lot of followers, or don't seem like they have a lot of pull in the industry, because the only thing that matters is your individual voice. It doesn't matter what other people are saying. So, I think it's important that whenever you have the chance to tell your story and explain what your experience was like and talk about it in lots of different ways, I think you should take advantage of that, because it doesn't matter if this podcaster or this journalist or whoever it is, if they're new or they don't know what they're doing. What matters is that your voice is out there, and then you can clip that and you can use that however you want. You could just cut out, your 15-second clip, and it was on your social media, and then that's always cast your name. So that's really important.
I completely agree. And I also think too, when I started I wanted to start a podcast forever. And when I finally did it, and I had all the eyes in the world I was ever going to have on me, it still took me a while to get over that hill to do it. But there were people that extended their platform to me that didn't have to. Right. And so I believe that paying it forward is important. And I understand that I'm going to give someone an hour of my time who maybe has 500 listeners, an episode, or less or more or whatever. And I'm going to do that to partially pay it forward, but also, to your point, to get my voice out there, because there's a lot of I'm shadow banned. I have 322,000 followers right now, and I have reels that are collaborated with people that have hundreds of thousands of followers, and I get less than 1,000 views.
Wow.
Views. And
really
so
saying it.
This really happened after I started the UCAN Foundation, and after my little Instagram feud with Nick Vile. That was really just me and him not partaking in it. But after that, it all changed. And I get people that DM me or leave comments on my videos on YouTube and for the podcast. And they're like, how am I not seeing this? Or how am I not seeing any posts from you? I had to come to your page because I saw something that I thought about you or whatever. And I came to your page. I realized I haven't seen your story in 6 months. All of this stuff, my own friends don't see my stuff. My friends that I've had way before the show, they told me a couple of weeks ago, I never see your stuff. And sometimes I just go to your page to see what your podcast is about or what you're up to or what you're saying, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, like I might get more listeners and people hearing what I have to say going on a small podcast than I am from my social media platform, which was supposed to be payment for my time on the show.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's crazy because they just have
Yeah.
so much control over all of it that you will, especially if you have any kind of dissenting voice. And this isn't just reality TV, this is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Social media will deplatform you or suppress your platform on anything you want to talk about that may not be the mainstream narrative or the narrative that's being pushed about these things. Now, that being said, I can guarantee you that if I were to change my style and start talking about the gossip of reality TV shows, and I mean, I'd be back in the algorithm in no time. But I choose not to because that's not who I am. But I watch other people do it, and I'm like, have some integrity, like care about something. It's really hard to see that. But anyway.
Oh my gosh, I've been talking about that really publicly because, I have always been someone who's advocated for social justice issues I'm a history teacher, especially as a public school teacher in New York City, and it's something that I've spoken about constantly, always, in MLA. And so when you get into the TV world, it's never explicitly stated, at least it was never stated to me, don't talk about politics, but there is definitely a very conservative lean in the 90-day world. The people who have shows and shows and shows and shows, 100% of them are very conservative. So those of us who do speak out about things like, what we're currently dealing with in Palestine, I went from getting 2,000 or 3,000 views on my stories to when I started talking about this, there was a morning where I woke up and 35 people had seen my story from the night before. It was the same week that I was launching an apparel line. And I was like, I have to sit here and choose between my business that I have built, that I kept alive during COVID, that I kept alive during reality TV, that I've been able to maintain through all of this. I have to choose between that and standing up for what I believe in. And it was really, really hard for me to, make the decision that I'm not going to be silenced. I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. What I am going to do is bring it to the attention of Meta. And I'm in these Meta creators groups on Facebook. And so I just very clearly said, here's my stats. Here's my analytics from last month. Here's the exact moment that I started talking about this thing. Here are my analytics. Explain that to me. All of a sudden, my views were amazing. So,
really?
Yeah.
Can you send me those groups? Because, I started looking when I noticed after all of that stuff. If I was talking, like when I was having a little back and forth with, Nick Vile or I would go on a reality TV show podcast. Those would do fine, right? Like those shared would be, but if it was me talking about something or me speaking up about the SAG strikes or whatever that is, I'd go look at my stats before you can. It was 25-30% my followers. The rest was non-followers. Now if I get down to 95% my followers, that's a win. It's usually 98% my followers and then 2-3% not. So I'm in an echo chamber of people. And so it's just, the more you're in an echo chamber, the more who your supporters are, right? Yeah. But at the same time, the message just, it's almost like propaganda to the point where it's like, okay, I get it. Shut up. You know what I mean? And so that becomes very challenging to do. On a regular basis when you're just saying the same thing to the same people all the time and you're just stuck in this shadow band or no algorithm whatsoever. And then by the way, it becomes difficult to get people to come on your show because they can go see stuff like that. And my podcast, my YouTube is so suppressed and shadow banned. It's unbelievable. I'll get 2 new followers or subscribers a week. I probably get more messages a week of people saying, I can't believe this isn't a big story than I get of subscribers. And it's wild.
One of the ways that I think we can segment this, and I learned this kind of early on in my business, that you're never going to own the Meta platform, even with TikTok, you're never going to own these social media platforms. The most important thing that you can have as a content creator or business owner is your email list. So every single person lands on your page in any way, you want to have their email address.
Yeah.
So that you're sending out weekly newsletters, however many new thousands of people show up on your page, anybody who's been on their podcast, anybody on their network, if I share with my network, your podcast, so that, okay, so your story and what you're creating is no longer controlled by these platforms that you're creating on, but it's controlled by you. And you can push that out to the people who are on your list who have signed up to hear from you and may share your stuff with other people. I also feel like making a call to like local news networks, like, in New York City, it used to be New York One, or, like some kind of local news network that would really benefit from having their hands on a big story like this. You might get like an eager journalist, whatever it is, the story that is setting us across. Like sometimes you get like eager journalists and like these little local news networks that could blow something up in a way that you can't because you're being pushed, suppressed.
Well, and that's a good point. I'm actually meeting next week for a strategy session with my publicist because I've got some big stuff coming down, UCAN related. And, the thing, so we have a UCAN newsletter, which I haven't advertised that on my social in a while to get more names. Sure. I should do that. Yeah. But what I think is so challenging is you went to this Facebook group, right? But there's no person to talk to. There's no contact us. There's no, here's your success manager. Like you would think. And even when I got, the blue check, it was because Netflix and Kinetic just got the blue check because they got the contacts.
We all wake up in the morning with a blue check.
And it's like, that's exactly.
Johan was like, you have a blue check. Why don't I have a blue check? Why do you have a blue check? I'm like, I don't know. I woke up with a blue check. It was amazing.
And then it's there. It's crazy how they do that. And so, they've got those contacts and those different algorithms to make the same call to say, hey, put this guy here. And the way content's prioritized and the way we're all labeled on, if you go into like Facebook and stuff, they've got us all labeled politically so that they can keep us in certain algorithms. Like the way it's all just kind of owned by Meta, owned by TikTok, and they can do what they want. It is a suppression of free speech, in my opinion. But the fact that we have no one to talk to, like they can shut your business down. Like if you got shadow banned and you couldn't get yourself undone, it would devastate your business.
100%. Now, I don't leave my house. I don't leave my house. I do no in-person networking. Everything I do is on social media. If I lost my account, I'd be done. I don't even know how I'd handle that. Like, I have my email list, but like, I'm not sending emails 3 times a day. I'm not showing pictures of what I'm doing.
Well, that's going to get an unsubscribe anyway if you do that. Yeah. So we don't really control access to information, or I should say, we don't have control over the access we have to information. We really don't. And we're just being fed what people think we need to see and hear. And I think that people, as humans, we need to be more discerning about what is the information that I'm receiving and why. Like when you scroll through your Instagram feed, look at the ads, write them all down, right? Write down the first 5 ads you see, and then tell me what that says about who you are and what you do. When you go to Facebook or when you are on a streaming page, look at what people are pushing towards you and what is not being told. And this is what we teach kids when we're teaching them about media literacy. It's like everybody who's telling you a story has an agenda. Everybody. Yep. I have an agenda showing up to this podcast. You have an agenda having me on the show, right? We both have a purpose for being here. What is my agenda? I think it's important that people are more discerning. And that people really take ownership of their experiences, they establish their boundaries, and they separate themselves from the noise that's happening around them. Like online need is not about you, it's about them. And it's about something even bigger than them. It's not even about them. So like once you start to understand that, you can start to look at things a little bit differently. You have to criticize every single thing that you receive in your life. I start with I'm being lied to. Prove me wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like what am I being told and why? And that's really important for us to do with all kinds of information, especially in the political climate that we're in, because it's so easy for a computer to craft a narrative for you to believe in.
You want to hear something crazy? So I agree. And I'm a harsh critic of the media in general. Like I have been for a long time, because when I was a journalist and editor-in-chief in college, college you're protected by the First Amendment in college, right? So it's the most pure form. In high school, a principal can censor the paper. And then in professional journalism, your advertisers censors you or you self-censor, right? So college is the purest form. Now you can have advertisers that can leave and school can readjust funding. I experienced all of that stuff, but they were putting so much pressure on me for writing hard-hitting investigative journalistic stories about what was going on at the school and how money was being spent and how a building was built and it wasn't up to code with the plumbing, like all of this crazy stuff. And there was so much pressure. It scared me as a 21, 22-year-old young man that I was like, I can't do journalism. Like, this is too scary. Like, I had to get a police escort at one point because of a story that I wrote. And so it taught me to be very critical of everything I'm getting fed now through social media, but in the media, in the news, the headlines. Like, never believe a headline for what it is. It's clickbait. It's the same thing with that video about you being what was it, a colonist?
Privileged colonizer.
Privileged colonizer, or Nick Thompson, homeless, blame show. Like, none of that's true. None of that's true. So I really encourage people, when you see something, as you're saying, ask yourself, why am I seeing this? What does this mean? And what's the opposing viewpoint? Because the truth is somewhere in between. And so when people say, oh, I can't believe you follow Donald Trump, it's like, guys, front runner for the president, I want to know what he's fucking saying. You know what I mean? It's like, or I can't believe that what was the other one I said? Oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, sometimes every now and then, like, I'll watch a video on Alex Jones. Oh, I'm like, guy's been right about a thing or two in his time, right? It's like, I just want to know, because when you have all the information or you have more information, there's two things. You can discern a truth that makes sense to you, which is probably a nuanced take. And then at the same time, you can also see what your peers are seeing on all sides of the spectrum. So you can have a more open conversation with them, as opposed to this, you're on one side, the other person on the other, everything's black and white and you hate each other. Like, that's where we're at right now. And you look at Israel and Palestine, I'm like, I had Dr. Jill Stein on my show about a month ago, who's the Green Party candidate for president. And one of the things that I like really wanted to talk to her about was, I feel like we've got this Israel-Palestine thing and people are like, and it's crazy, but I'm like, I actually think 90% of the people, not the governments, not Hamas, not Bibi Netanyahu, the people are like, we don't want this. We don't want anybody dying innocently. Yeah. Like, these are big things that, like, they're human beings too. Like, Israel has a right to exist. Hamas is terrorism. The people that are underneath these governments, like, they're innocent people. Yeah. So it's just, but you've got to pick a side, right? You've got to pick a side. And that's with everything. Are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? Are you this? Are you that? Do you support this person on a reality show, or do you think they were abusive? Like, there's nuance to everything.
There's no end.
There's no end.
There's no end. It's just this or that, that. Everything is black and white. There's no middle. When nothing is black and white. Nothing. No. There's not one thing that is black and white. There's no evidence that anything is black and white. So I don't even know. It's really our two-party system that makes people believe that things are two-sided. Like, we've created this idea that there is this or this, and that there are two sides, where the evolution of what Democrat actually means, like, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican and freed the slaves. Like, Democrats were the fucking devil. Like, they were awful. They ran the Confederacy. Like, the evolution of the Democratic Party as, like, the social justice warriors of the political system, which is also fictional. But, like, that shows that this two-party system is completely made up. And it's about, where the money's coming from. So, like, that, creating that structure. And they're all bought and
paid for by the same people, which is why we're fighting over stupid shit like gender and bathrooms and is Trump going to be a dictator? It's like, we're fighting about these crazy ass things, which, by the way, no one, I think, has ever, and I don't like Trump, but that guy gets misrepresented in the headlines every day. Like, Trump says he's going to be a dictator, and you go and, like, listen to the interview, and he said, I'm going to be a dictator on day one for two things. I'm going to close the border, and I'm going to drill for oil in this country so we can get gas prices under control. So I'm like, that is totally different than a headline saying, and again, don't agree with that. Maybe the border, but don't agree with the drilling thing. But the fact that it's saying he's going to be a dictator, and that's what people are reading, and that's the narrative that they're telling. Like, that's not accurate. That's not fair.
Mm.
That's a total misrepresentation. And again, like that, and like the fact that the evolution of the Democrats, like I got in this argument with my friend about this. I'm like, there's only one candidate or only one party that's removing presidential candidate from ballots. This was a few months ago. And I'm like, and that's the Democrats. And whether it's a good intention to save democracy or not, let's forget that. But let's remember that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And if censorship and fascism comes from the Democrat side, that doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean it's good, because they're doing it with good intentions. So, but it's just this crazy divide, and you can't have nuanced conversations with people, and everybody wants black and white because it's easy, it's simple, and it doesn't require you to put energy in it. And it's the same with reality TV, right? You can just read the headline, form your opinion on someone, go spew it all over the internet, and not have any repercussions for it, even though you're the 10,000th person that said something horrible to this human being who's reading these DMs, whether they should or shouldn't, right? Debate, you can debate that, but it's just a very hostile, hateful, dividing environment that we're in. And it is from the two-party system, I think, and just this innate feeling that humans have that things need to be black and white.
Yeah, it's I hope that all of this like revolutionary I don't know if really like protest is the word that I'm looking for, but I think that right now there's a huge upheaval of like the young people saying, no, we're not buying any of this. We are not buying any of this. Like my son's generation, he's 23, like these college kids that we're seeing on campuses, like, you know, there's a little bit of like a danger in the groupthink mentality when everybody's yelling about shit that they don't know what they're talking about.
Totally agree.
But there is something to be said for so many people are revolting and asking for something different. Someone has to pay attention at some point. And I think that, you know, it's going to be a lot harder to maintain this two-party system for the next two election cycles. Like this one is kind of a wash and it's really scary and I don't know what's going to look like. But I think
it's going to be crazy. I don't think we're going to have a winner. I think
I honestly am not going to be in the country at the election.
Might not either.
I'm going to be going somewhere else. But I hope that what we're seeing, the fucking chaos that we're experiencing, leads to major change and like an elimination of this like crazy two-party system, the electoral college, like all of these systems that are archaic and don't work.
Designed to control the elections, essentially.
Yeah, I feel like this might be the time where these things actually change, because this is nothing. What we're going to see leading up to the election day is just really...
Well, you know what? I completely agree. You know, what's really crazy about this election cycle is last time people got so fired up, more people voted than ever before against Trump and against COVID. But now, like, things haven't gotten much better. Everything costs more money. And so like the whole like Trump bad man, like, again, I hate that I feel like I'm forced to defend that buffoon, but like, and I'm not defending him because I don't think he's a good person. I think he's very smart at marketing and understanding how to read a room and say things that resonate, even though he's not going to do any of the good things that come out of his mouth. But I think that there's like this weird thing of unrest within people where we're like, well, we voted to get the bad guy out. He didn't go anywhere. He's back, or he's never really left. And now we've got this other guy who I can't even with Joe, but like, you've got this guy who's like not up to the job, no matter how you put it, not up to the job. And then you've got people that are just kind of like apathetic because like we voted to get the bad guy out, so things got better. Things didn't really get better. And in some cases got worse, especially for working class who can't afford to pay $5 for a gallon of milk that was $3 4 years ago or whatever. And those are the things that people vote on, right? Or the fact that like I have friends, accountants, professionals working 2 jobs now in the last couple of years who are looking for a second job because like my savings is going down. I can't pay my rent the same way I used to and have disposable income. And that is, whether it's right or wrong, those are the things that people are going to vote on in that moment. And then you have RFK Jr., who again, say what you want. I have mixed feelings on all of these candidates, but he's actually polling really well in swing states to the point where in some of them, he's beating both of those guys. And so if he wins a couple swing states, we're not going to have a winner at the end because no one's going to get the 270 electoral college. So I think you're right, where this might be the breaking point. And
Yeah.
it's a circus, and people are voting very much on emotion, and then I think like kitchen table issues. But I think
Yeah.
this, and I've been calling for this since 2016. I thought it was going to happen in 2016. I thought we were going to get a third party. So it's been building, but this feels different
I
because
mean,
nobody wants this.
yeah, no, but well, the thing is, nobody wants any of these candidates.
Exactly.
Nobody is real, except, I mean, Trump supporters are very gung ho Trump, but no, nobody's
But a
really
lot of them
gung
are only
ho.
Trump because of the bullshit, the way that he's in court all day and he says funny, he's hilarious. I'll say that. But like, there's hardcore MAGA, right? But like,
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of them are just kind of like, well, I'm going to vote for Trump again. I don't really want to. I wish there was a better option, but that didn't work out. But anyway, I'm sorry I cut you off.
I feel like the Trump support, because I'm in Florida, this is Trump country.
Oh
And
yeah.
like, this couldn't be a worse place for me. And what I'm seeing from people is they feel like Trump has been vilified. They feel like
Exactly.
none of this is real. Stormy Daniels is a liar, that all of these felony counts are fake, that this has all been constructed by the Democratic Party to destroy this poor innocent man. And that is the language that I see around me. And it doesn't matter how much evidence we have that says that that's actually not accurate, that he did
No.
do all these things. You know, they say it doesn't matter, you can make up evidence. And I said, well, what about the video where he said this? Oh, I could be, the AI could have done that. And it's just
Oh
like
my God.
yeah, there's like, people are completely ignoring what is in front of them with him. And that kind of lack of discernment is what makes me scared. I would prefer people say, listen, yeah, he did all these things, but Joe Biden's going to die. So, you know, this
True.
is like, I would prefer for you to say that,
Yeah.
right? But I
I
have a
think
hard
some of
time.
them do, but I think
Yeah.
you're right. And some of them now, like not just Florida, but everywhere, they're like, well, he is they made one thing up, or they're trying to take him off the ballot, or they're trying to put him in jail, their political opponent. And so because of that, it just makes everything else seem fake. When in
Yeah.
reality, like there are things that like Noam Chomsky says every president is since I forget who is a war criminal since like World War II is a war criminal. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. And if they were to throw him in jail for like real crimes that are there, they would have to go back and throw every president in jail. Right. It's like, so it's a very weird thing where they're trying to get him on these like Trump bad man with Stormy Daniels instead of actually prosecuting. Because if they actually prosecuted him for something like really bad that isn't socially like, a culture topic, they'd have to, it would open up a huge can of worms. It's just,
I want fucking Stormy Daniels for president, honestly. Because in this whole fucking game, she's the smartest one. She was like, she got the money at the jump.
Yeah.
Then she realized this was going to be a story. She fucking pitched it. She went and did a strict tour. Like, that's
she's
who
getting
we
her
need.
money.
She got
She's
her
getting her
money.
money.
She solved the problem. She took on one of the most powerful men in the world. Like, regardless of whether or not you think he's smart or whatever, like, he has a lot of power just in his properties and where they are. Like, she really, took one for the team quite a few times here and made bank on it. She, so like I think we're kind of, we don't take her seriously because she's a porn star, but she's smarter than any of these motherfuckers. Because they're like, y'all can talk about me and say whatever you want about me. My bank account
I got my money. Exactly. No, I agree.
I give her a lot of credit. Yeah,
she was smart about getting her money.
No, I appreciate that kind of that movement from a woman because it's hard to take him up.
Well, you know what else too, I think, and not to tie it completely back to reality TV, but one of the things that I've kind of changed my mind on is people doing the shows like What's for the Right Reason, right? And I think you can't, we're like our environment, our capitalistic environment, it's very like predatory. It's very hard to like succeed in it. And sometimes if you see your opportunity to go get your money, like I don't condone hurting other people, but I go get it.
Yeah.
And taking hush money from Trump and then going on a PR tour is not hurting anybody. Maybe his pocketbook or his campaign fund, depending on when
Yeah.
you ask, but it's pretty crazy. I just think, get your money, just don't hurt anybody.
Yeah, that's really it. Like if you move, because a lot of people have said even in the 90-day universe, like I did the show because I wanted to make money for this charity, or I did the show because I was starting this business and I wanted to get, and like I think the producers don't want to hear that because they want to hear that you're doing the show because you really value your story and you want it to be out in the world. But the truth is, like everybody is coming to this space with an agenda. Every single
That's
one of us is coming to get something out of it, whether it's a husband or a wife or, a check or, promotions, free PR, whatever it is, everybody's coming here for a purpose. I think it's really important that before you make this leap, you know what that purpose is. And you're very clear on that
yes.
purpose. And all of the choices that you make are in alignment with that purpose. Because if you're just like, I want to be famous, well, famous for what? And what are you going to
Yes.
do with it? That is something I say to any cast member when they
Me
start and
too.
they're like, what's your advice? I'm like, decide what you want to do with this. Like
Yep.
what do you fight for? What do you stand for? Bring that to the table because you're going to have this free marketing. Use it for something good that's going to help other people and yourself.
That's what I tell people too. And when I've talked to people going on like Love is Blind specifically, one of the things I tell them is get your shit aligned, like what you want out of it, what your expectations are, what you will and won't do, but also understand that there's someone else on the other side of that pod, right? In that pod
Yeah.
across from you. And that person may not have the same intentions of you. So you should consider either discussing that or having that in your mind because I said to a friend, the one thing you don't want to do is go on there thinking maybe you can find love. And then the guy on the other side is like, I'm never getting married on this show. I'm going to go as far as I possibly can so that I can get internet famous or launch my business or do whatever it is. And then you're up there at the altar and you think you're in love with someone who's there for completely different reasons than you. And I think and it's like your point with the couples, right? You're going to go on a show like 90 Day, have your shit figured out, be solid, know what you will and won't do, and go at it together.
Yeah, there's one cast member who recently I gave her some shit because it came out that she was like just fishing for someone to do the single life with her. Like she basically was like, hey, they want me to do single life. I need someone to pretend to be my boyfriend. And like she like fished for like someone to do the show with her. And he ended up releasing it because she like attacked her publicly. So he released like all the text messages and it's like this big circus act. And my frustration with this is like you make us all look bad when you make choices like that.
Yep.
You make it look like my shit is scripted, his shit is scripted, and nobody takes it seriously anymore because they think, well, here, that's a game.
And that
so,
goes,
like, you can't raise money for one cause while you're acting disingenuous in another. That's not how God works. Like, you can't save the llamas if you're hurting this man. So,
right.
make sure that all of your values are in alignment. And it's not just like, look at me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, too, as a community and as I've kind of like stepped into this role of UCAN and trying to bring people in the industry together, I think the thing that I've learned, there's two things I've learned. One, it's like herding stray cats. Two, the other thing is that we all have a role to do if we want to be taken seriously and be treated as talent, content creators, respectable, right, in the industry, because the industry is frowned upon. And I've had to do a lot of work to get SAG to agree that we should be considered talent, right? And so positioning. Oh, what's that? Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
Oh,
she's back.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I heard you say to get SAG to agree.
Yeah, to get like SAG and actors and stuff to view us as talent, right? And change the narrative on that. But we have to behave as if we're not these clout chasing, 15-minute chasing people. Like we have to have integrity. We have to show that we belong here and that we're not just these crazy, dramatic, lunatics that are just chasing clout.
Yeah. That's on
on that sad note, before I finish, I like to give my guests a chance to ask me anything. Is there anything that you want to ask me before we wrap up here? This has been so fun.
This has been really fun. So I guess my question for you is, what's your longing? Like, what do you really want to see happen for you, yourself, for the future of reality TV? What do you want your work to continue to be?
Thanks for that question. I've been thinking a lot about my my work, right, as an individual person. And legacy. I actually talked to someone on my show about legacy a couple of months ago. And what I want, and when I say legacy, it's not like public legacy. It's like, what am I leaving behind? And it's not about me. It's like, what did I do to leave the world a better place than I found it? Or what am I doing to leave reality TV a better place than I found it? Because those are the things that keep me up at night and keep me ticking to keep moving forward. So what I'd like to do from a personal level is I don't need a spotlight. I don't really want a spotlight. But what I want to do is have these values that I almost feel. So I joke and say, like, I feel like whenever Love is Blind comes out, I need to be the dad of the internet and go remind everyone to be nice, go remind everyone that these are real people and all of that stuff. And so I think my advocacy of mental health and treating people better and building a world that is more human first is, it's kind of like very fluffy and a vision, but I want to keep making moves to doing that. I want to be the work that I do, the activism that I do, all to be around a human first centric thing. And what
Yeah.
that looks like from a reality TV perspective is that people like you and me and the people who have had it much worse from a public perspective, that there is some working condition improvement, that there are real tools and solutions that put the human being that we're all watching and observing for content, puts them in a better place to be successful. And I want working conditions for these shows to improve. I want people who are cast in these shows to be treated as a talent, as a human being, have rights, make some money. And so when I look at it, I really want to change the industry to make sure people have better support for their mental health, better preparation, better working conditions, better payment options, and that strategically as a group of talent and people. And I know that that's a large group with a lot of different shows and a lot of different formats and a lot of different things there. But like to be able to come together and be in some sort of a collective union or collective bargaining group of people is something that I'm very focused on, and that's kind of my end game of what I want to accomplish before I can leave the reality TV world for good and leave it better than I found it. But yeah, ultimately, I want to make a difference, and I want to give all the work that I did, and I don't. We talked about this before we were filming, but I don't like to give myself a lot of credit, but I did stand up because no one else was, and I didn't want to do this. I chose to do this, but like I wasn't chosen to do this. I decided someone needed to do it. And so if no one else was going to do it, then I was going to do it because that's my ethos. And that's also how I end up a group project leader in school when I was in school all the time. And so my vision for that is I'll stand up now and speak so everyone else can stand up and speak later, and then I don't have to do it anymore. And then we're a group of people speaking out, and it isn't just about me, because it isn't about me. I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm always going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm very resilient. And I want to make sure that the people who aren't as resilient, or the people like my ex-wife Danielle, whose mental health were just punted into oblivion through this whole process, never have to go through that again. And so I'll speak now so others can speak later is kind of how I'm viewing it. So
I love that. And I've said to you so many times, like, I remember when you first took this leap and like you came out against the boss, like Netflix is the boss. And so I really give you so much credit and so much respect for that, because you're still here. It wasn't just like, oh, I got a bad edit, so let me talk my ish and then like get my life back. It was, you can tell that you're very committed to this and that this is something that is meaningful to you. And you have had more impact than I think you realize in the moment, because you're in it. Like when you're in it and doing the thing, you just see like the day-to-day doing the thing. But as someone who has been watching what you do from the outside and seeing your impact, I mean, Bethany Frankel wouldn't be talking about this if you weren't.
I think
really
that
believe
she doesn't think that, I don't think, but
I
but
I
thank you.
100% believe that, and like because I watched it, because I just watch. I just sit back and watch because I just think this is also fascinating. And I think you have had a really big impact. And that's why I was willing to kind of sacrifice my reality TV career to talk to you, because I think that it's important that more of us are willing to sacrifice things that maybe are less important for the things that are more important.
That's so kind of you. Like I'm not gonna cry, but I appreciate it because it is hard sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah, everybody needs a little validation sometime. And I know you've been watching. We've been talking on and off for a while, so your support is greatly appreciated. And I do appreciate you coming on this show as well and risking your very successful career in the 90-day universe to be here. But
Very successful.
where can people find you online?
They can find me at Liviansa, Liveynsa. It's the website. It's TikTok, Instagram. That's really where I live, all those places. And that's where my retreats are. I also have a podcast. I have an online membership platform that people can join to kind of get some of the support they need to navigate this crazy life. And that's really it.
Awesome.
It's just, I live in the internet world. I do.
Scary as it can be sometimes. Well, all of those links are down in the show notes. And thanks again for coming on. This was really great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's just dope.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.